So again, the focus of the chapter is sentencing and a correctional process. And, again, although there are many ways that we're capable of punishing people, oftentimes it is done with some type of prison sentence. Again, we laid out the goals of what you want to accomplish at the end of this chapter. Um, although I won't test you on the mind. Actually, if you do some of the, if you want to do some of the mind taps, because again, I will not penalize you based upon your score. But if you do some, let me know and I'll give you some extra credit for that. Because I think it can be good practice for you on the quiz and a visual exam. And look, y'all know in my classes, sorry. Yeah, I know in my classes there are pop quizzes. So again, there could be a quiz today. Y'all don't know. Be ready at any time. But doing some of those mind tap exercises could be good practice for that as well. But it's always be really clear what you should know at the end of the chapter. That once you're done reading, and you may not have all these concepts mastered, but it's really important to know what you're supposed to know, and then go back and be honest with yourself about the concepts that you do and that you don't. You're not a machine, so you're not going to know everything, but we should be a little bit further along than we are so far. So let's learn from these experiences and do a little bit better, and use all the tools at our disposal to be successful. Again, most of what's the things that you need to really give close attention to in this class are not going to be on the bullet points themselves. You want to really listen up to the discussion. So I'm not going to test you on Mr. Zarnoff here, but it's to give you some idea about how sentencing works and some of the consideration that we have in the criminal justice system. Each chapter starts with an anecdotal story or background story like this. That kind of reinforces some of the concepts that you're going to learn about throughout the chapter. So you're never going to get tested on this stuff, but it can help you understand. So most of y'all probably was too young, was little bitty kids when this happened. When the Boston Marathon bombing on Patriots Day many years ago, where they killed many, injured a whole lot more. Were trying to kill more than they actually got, and they were eventually caught. One of the cats, he was caught hiding like in a neighbors in somebody's like backyard. They had like a boat in the backyard, and he was like under the tarp hiding in there. So they eventually got him up out of there and arrested him. But the main, and listen up again, make sure you're listening. The main thing that's relevant to this chapter is that when he was in prison, a lot of his constitutional rights were violated and denied. And this is important because, again, our purpose is to correct behavior. Our purpose is to correct behavior and/or, again, deter others, rehabilitate, all those good things. But the main thing, we aim to correct behaviors, not just in our system, And it's important that you know, Savannah, that the American system has prided itself on being the best criminal justice system in the world. Again, America has prided itself on being the best and most fair criminal justice system in the world. It's really important that you understand that dynamic because there are some things that we do that go against the values that we say that, we're trying to promote. Again, Malik was telling you earlier how if you were rich and you had some power in other societies, that might help you in terms of escaping the law under a Roman rule, for example. But in America, Lady Justice is supposed to be blind. That's the story that we tell ourselves. As we'll talk about in Jarvis throughout, we don't always live up to that model. It'll be your challenge to help us do so. Because again, even somebody, that does something as awful as this, even somebody like Dylan Roof has certain rights in prison. I don't know if Janiyah, them rights involve, taking him to Burger King or something on the way, to prison, but even a scumbag like that does have some rights which should be protected. Again, any one of us could go to prison. Does it, as we talked about last class, it does not always mean that we did it. If you are subjected to that, it is important to me that you're still treated well while you're in custody. If you did the crime in Jarvis, we got processes to deal with that. but we should believe, again, America prides itself on believing so much in our system that we can do things the proper way. And that is the best way to really correct behavior. Now, when we talk about the sentencing process, Malik, keep in mind that it's not just, and look, don't, if you only get out of this bullet point, prosecutors, judges, probation staff, you've done yourself a huge disservice. Listen to what's about to be said. That the sentencing process involves several different individuals. I forgot who asked, it might have been Savannah, that asked about this last time that, I forget the exact example. But in short, like, so I was talking, like, I'll give it the example this way. Is anybody familiar with Plaxico Burress? Anybody know who that is? Plaxico Burress. No worries if you don't. He's a former NFL player, Janiyah. He came into the news because he was in a club in New York City a few years back, and he accidentally shot himself. How do y'all think law enforcement should have dealt with that? No wrong answers, but how do you think law enforcement should have dealt with it?
Like coming to the scene?
Say it again, Savannah.
I said, are you asking like how they should have dealt with it coming to the scene?
Yeah, so like, do y'all think he, like, you know, he got shot? Do y'all think that like he did anything wrong, or anybody in law enforcement should be involved? How do y'all think it should be handled?
Well, first they should make sure if he's okay and everything, stuff like
Absolutely.
that too.
Good, absolutely good. Yeah, absolutely.
But after making sure he was okay, ask what kind of, in a sense, what was his intention having the gun? Because you're at a nightclub with a gun, and security probably technically supposed to, check you, make sure you didn't have none of that on you.
Excellent. Anybody else?
Dr. Muhammad, you said he was in New York, right?
True.
Was he did he play for the New York Giants or something?
He did.
Okay, so he.
That's
you
funny.
had froze up on my end. You froze on my end, but it depends because their laws are different from South Carolina and Georgia. So if he's at a nightclub, why do you have a firearm on you in the nightclub?
Good. You're on the right track. Great thinking. Like this is exactly the type of stuff I'm looking for. And it looked like you froze up now, and Jarvis. And Jarvis like this now.
Security guards or whoever, at the front door.
So anyway, you still there, Jarvis?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me
now?
Now I can. Yes, I'm sorry.
So yeah, they should have just treated him like a regular, person instead of somebody that's athlete or somebody that's famous.
Good.
I know if I go to New York and I try to go to a club with a firearm on me, they're gonna try, what are you doing? You can't have that. Call the police, try to beat my ass or something. They might see me as a threat.
Good. Other thoughts. So let me ask you this. So you're right. So one of the important things there, and then Jarvis, is really good that you thought about, because in essence, what I'm asking y'all to do is act as if you were the prosecutor. So the first thing that you made note there is that they're in different places, and your thinking is on point there, in Jarvis. One extra credit point for that for you and Savannah, in terms of the place that a crime happens is really important to determining how you should deal with it. And you're absolutely right. The gun laws in New York City is very different than what you may have in your typical southern city. So with that, it was illegal for him to you can have a concealed carry permit. I know plenty of people who got that in South Carolina. I don't think you can bring it into a nightclub, but you can drive around, walk around with your gun so long as it's concealed, and you got a permit for it. You can't do that in New York City. You can have a gun in your house in Jarvis, and somebody tries to break into your crib, you can have it there. That is the only place in New York City where you're allowed to have a gun. So now that we know that that's against the law, he broke the law. You're right, Savannah. We had to make sure he's all right first, but he broke a law. How should we deal with that? What again, we can punish people all types of ways, right? How do you think he should be punished for something like that?
Me personally, I feel like he should at least like pay a fine, like a big fine, because you kind of did break the you did break the law.
Good.
I don't think it's really worthy of him getting locked up, but he should definitely pay a fine.
Okay, good. Other thoughts? No wrong answers.
Well, to kind of piggyback off of Savannah, like she said, just pay a fine. But I think I tell you why I think that it's because nobody got hurt, but he did put people in danger, and it's not worth him going to jail over. But he could learn a lesson from it to just pay the fine, and he won't bring a gun back into a club anymore.
Good, good. I see one extra credit point there. See, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I've been wanting. Thinking. Because
I got one for you, Dr. Muhammad.
Go ahead, Ed Jarvis. Or is that Ed Jarvis?
Yes, sir. Also with him paying the fine, it's another thing we can look at it too. He could be released from the NFL team he was playing for as well.
Good. That's an important point, but the legal system should have no part in that. But that is an important point to make note of for sure, that there have been times where people have not necessarily gotten. So Ray Rice, when he that's another football player. Y'all almost certainly saw this one. That was the dude who knocked this girl out in the elevator a few years back. He got no criminal, the prosecutors, he got no jail time or any type of legal sanction for that. He did lose his job. So, but that's a different matter altogether. Here we're talking about how the government, how the state should deal with it. So all these things speak to, and I got you 1 second in the chat, Malik. All of these things speak to the prosecutor has a choice. The prosecutor has a choice. The prosecutor has a choice. I always keep this in mind. This is really important, particularly for young Black people to know. The prosecutor can they can decide, I'm going to give him a fine. I'm going to give him probation. I'm going to recommend that we give him 3 years in prison. This prosecutor, Savannah, recommended prison time, and he did that prison time. But they didn't have to. And part of it is the logic of some of the things y'all said. A fine could work, and I definitely would get the attention of somebody like me. But if you're a millionaire like Plaxico Burress, a fine might not be again a lot of Wall Street people, they do horrible crimes and then they get a fine of $1 million. When you're a billionaire, that's not a whole bunch. But the main point of us going through this exercise, I'm not going to test you about Plaxico Burress. I am testing you about the role of prosecutors. That the prosecutor, again, they go to court, you commit a crime, Janiyah. And they ask the prosecutor, okay, look, we're going to charge Janiyah with this crime. For Prosecutor Richardson, how much time do you think we recommend? I recommend that Janiyah should get 5 years with no bail. The other things that you all mentioned, they take into account. How many, so what's Janiyah, one of the things Janiyah said, okay, did he put other people in danger? So again, in New York, this would be looked at differently if it was in a smaller area. Might it look like he's getting a lighter sentence because of his wealth and fame? So these are all are they a flight risk? If I let them out, are they going to actually show back up for their court date? Or are they going to get on a Queen and Slim on? So prosecutors have a lot of power and control and say so. That's why, again, do your own research on this. I could be making it up. White prosecutors and Black defendants, you get way more time. I could be making it up. Do your own research. But again, so same crime, like again, a black person commits a crime, a white person commits a crime. Oftentimes, the type of sentence that is recommended will depend upon whether or not your prosecutor is white or black. That's why it's so vital for me. I need y'all to get into these, like, law schools, and I need y'all to take some of these people's jobs. Again, why when the police be murdering these people, why do they keep getting off with it? The prosecutors don't charge you with no fucking crime. That's a choice. That's a choice, Sway. The prosecutor's like, no, they don't. They acted in self-defense. The prosecutor can make a choice to do something different. They don't. So keep this in mind when we talk about the other things you got to write about in your paper. Then, and I'm sorry, Malik, give me one moment here. Yeah, absolutely. Like, yes, if you're in a carry concealed state, so if Plexico was in Georgia and South Carolina, yeah, he would have been good to go, even in shooting himself. Because people like, man, he got locked up for shooting himself. No, he didn't get locked up for shooting himself. He got locked up for having a weapon. Again, many crimes, particularly in northern, and then it's important to understand the rationale that in places like New York, Chicago, again, it is illegal. Everybody got a gun in Chicago, but it's illegal to do so. So you got the prosecutor. So again, Janias committed this crime. The prosecutor recommends 5 years with no bail. A judge then looks at the information, and they look at all the facts of the case, and they then decide, like, hey, Nigeria was asking for 5 years for Janiyah. Let me be the judge and decide if this is reasonable. And then even if you do go to prison or you get probation and you're let out on your own recognizance, you work with probation workers who can increase or decrease your sentence at any moment. So many people, let's say, so even after Plexico was out, I'm sure he also got probation where, okay, we're gonna let you out, but if you commit any other crime within the next 12 months, you're coming back to prison. There are some probation staff that really, really, really will hammer down. Some that might be a little bit more lenient. All of them play an important role in the sentencing process. Again, so when I talked about before in Jarvis, that one of the things that you got to explain here, again, the bail process, the pre-trial process, preventive detention. I need you to be able to walk me through all of these things. And then, again, it's not just enough to know that prosecutors, judges, and probation staff play a role in the sentencing process. It's really important that you all know the precise role that they do play. Let's look at the different types of sentences you can get. Again, the purpose of a sanction is to correct behavior. As several of you all had alluded to earlier, you could get a fine. Again, if you speed, you normally will not get incarcerated. You'll get a ticket. If you commit an environmental crime, that'll usually involve a fine. If you cheat on your taxes, Nigeria, that's going to require a fine. But we can also give you probation where you don't pay a fine, but it's like your behaviors are a lot more restricted. So you may get behavior like, okay, look, we're gonna let you go on this public intoxication, Savannah, but you can't take a sip of alcohol for a year. Sorry, Savannah. And of course, the most severe penalty that we can offer in our society is putting somebody to death. So when we talk about punishment, Janiyah, it's really important to know, like, very few people who break the law go to jail. Very few people who break the law go to jail, because and most laws are not most deviants, like, they're not that harmful to society. Again, the four purposes of corrections, again, is incapacitation, retribution, deterrence, and rehabilitation. Incapacitation is designed, Latasia, to protect the public from dangerous people. Most people, again, people that are speeding, some kleptomaniac old lady, somebody that cheated on their taxes may not necessarily be putting us at great risk. Somebody like Dylan Roof, a gangbanger that participated in the drive-by. Somebody that's a serial rapist. Yes, those type of individuals we have to keep incarcerated to keep us all protected and safe. But most people who break the law do not. So again, keep this in mind, right? That oftentimes when people think of criminal justice, we immediately think of locking people up. But there are many corrective behaviors, many corrective strategies, Malik, that don't involve that. The same way that in your households, some behavior in drivers may have needed to be corrected by you getting a whooping, by your mama, your grandmama, maybe even a couple of neighbors up the street. But most of your behavior, again, and I'm sure, many of us, right, we had all types of behaviors that we needed corrected, right? Most of that, we probably didn't need to get no whooping. Getting put on punishment, getting video games taken away from you, getting TV privileges taken away from you, getting your phone taken away, not being able to hang out with your friends. Those, for me, oftentimes were much more effective in correcting my behavior. Like that stuff, that really hurt. And drivers, I'm up here, I can hear the window open. I hear my friends outside playing, having a grand time. I can't go out and kick it. Damn. So keep this in mind for our own system, right, in terms of correcting behavior. We often think that the first and only solution is just throwing everybody in jail. We want to look at the consequences of that. Is throwing people in jail correcting people's behavior as well as some of these other things that we do? Again, through positivism, we got data on all of that. We don't have to guess. We can see for sure. And make sure, again, that you're on camera. It's not just enough to have your camera on. Like, we need to actually be able to see each other. So I'm not going to teach the class like so, where my class, the camera is on, but you can't see me. Several of y'all are like that in your video, and you won't be able to get full attendance for that. So make sure that, put your, as Busta Rhymes to say, put your hands where my eyes can see. Put your face where my eyes can see. So there are many different types of sentences. You can have a concurrent sentence, a consecutive sentence, or you can be released with good time. So again, many individuals, we're trying to correct behavior. The classical school, a lot of these things got introduced, Latasia, with the classical school, where we began to see that, people's behavior could be corrected. We could reform them. We could have them repent, and they change their behavior. So the whole, the mark system, which we talked about in the last chapter, and that's a testable term. Again, make sure that you're writing this stuff down. Don't just be looking at this. The mark system is where we first introduced the notion of good time. If you can get in this prison in Jarvis and you can behave yourself and you ain't trying to fight the guards, you're not trying to fight the vice lords. When we do a bed check, you ain't giving us drama. We will reduce your sentence. Why? Because we can see some evidence that your behavior is being corrected. Oh, no, you're good, man. You're good. Because yeah, I definitely do. I know that there are times where y'all may not be able to be on camera, and that's totally cool. I still would prefer for y'all to come. Because the information is way more valuable than any points earned or lost. Like, these points are nothing. Like, students be clamoring like they everything, and then they look at their grade at the end of the semester and be wondering why they failed, because you don't get like, the same way you don't get paid just by showing up for work, you don't pass classes by just showing up and barely showing up at that. It's always, so the information is what's important. So hear me, hear me, hear me. Don't just write this stuff down. Again, the papers, there's a lot that you got to do in the papers, and Jarvis. But if you're listening, if you're attentive, I promise you, you're getting a lot of stuff here today. I don't expect you to like understand this stuff all at once. Don't just rely on the notes. Go back and read it too. They're going to give you even deeper breakdown and examples. But an indeterminate sentence is just simple, Malik. You're sentenced to a range of sentences. 15 to 20 with a possibility of parole. 1 to 3 years. So indeterminate, it could be a range of sentences. I'm sorry, a range of time. So for some crimes, and again, as you become criminal justice professionals, you definitely want to know this again for your field and discipline and just as a citizen. So there are certain crimes, Latasia, where the sentence is already established, where if you commit, if you have a gun charge, it's probably impossible for you. It's not legal for you to get less a year in jail. It's illegal for you to get less a year in jail, but it's also illegal for you to get like more than 5 years in jail. So usually there's a legal precedent that established like all murders, all rapes, all if you have this amount of possession of drugs, if you have this amount, this is the sentence for this is the sentence for that, this is the sentence for this crime. Y'all hear me? So the judge usually they can't determine the range. What the judge can decide is how many years you get within that range. What do you think are some things, and some of this y'all already kind of gave, even though y'all don't know it. What are some things you think that the judge might consider in the terms of like, okay, look, you committed this, you pistol whipped somebody, Latasia, again. The minimal time for this, the indeterminate sentence for this type of crime is 1 to 5 years. What type of things would I, as a judge, consider in whether or not to give her closer to 5 years or closer to 1 year? What kind of things might I keep in mind?
Your criminal history.
Say it again, Latasia.
Your criminal history.
Good, excellent, good. What else?
Their personal lives, like they have kids,
Excellent.
they own business or something.
Good. Who said that?
Janaya.
Good, Janaya. And look, write stuff down. Don't just be writing down what I say. Your classmates just gave you some gold there. Write your comments down. Anything else? Go ahead, Jarvis. I'm sorry.
It could be their reaction in the courtroom.
No, good question. Good point. No, that should not consider at all. Did she pistol whip somebody in the courtroom?
No, sir. But I kind of look at it like, say if somebody that actually did a crime comes into the courtroom with a nasty attitude, that might give the judge more leeway to get them more time than getting them less time.
Okay, I feel that. Now it is not supposed to play a role, but you're right, it can. Yes. Legally, Lady Justice is supposed to be blind. But how you react towards the judge, how you react towards the jury, how you dress, your body language, unfortunately, yes, those things do matter as well. But legally, they're not supposed to. But legally, we can consider your criminal history, your professional background, all those things. We can take those things into account and put this in the report, in the judicial report for why we determine this sentence. Anything else that might come to mind in terms of determining if Latasia should get 5 years or she should get 1? So good. Obviously, criminal history is I'm sorry, go ahead. I apologize.
I'm about to say, how others see you in the community, would that be like?
Yeah. Okay. I definitely can play a role. So, you be having character witnesses and stuff coming up there. But Tasia's a good Christian woman. She come to church every Sunday. So yes, those things definitely can play a role. So keep this thing in mind, and then once you're in prison, your own behavior can also reduce your sentence. And again, the goal here should be to correct behavior, but also just not allow people to think they could do anything. Determinate sentences are a lot more fixed. And again, right, there's a lot being asked in the paper. I promise you, these concepts are not very difficult. Indeterminate, as a judge, I have some flexibility within the range, within a certain range. I have some flexibility within a certain range. With determinate sentences, Janiyah, I got no choice. If I'm the judge, I got no discretion whatsoever. There are certain crimes, Malik, automatically 5 years, automatically 15 years, automatically 25 to life. Even if I, as a judge, am looking at the facts of the case, Latasia, I'm like, man, like, Latasia's an honor student. She's never, like, committed any crimes before. She was going through some issues with her medication at the time, like, to treat her bipolar disorder. Latasia does not have bipolar disorder, but you know what I'm saying. And she didn't have her medication, so that, so it looks like she reacted in this instance because of that. She may still have to do some jail time, but, and she got like 3 kids, all of them under 10 years old. They all in like, good accelerated programs. Latasia do need to learn a lesson, and I don't want other people to think they can do this, but man, I'm not sure what good it really does our society to have somebody like Latasia out of it. Like, Latasia was doing good things. She made a mistake. She got mad one day. I, as a judge, I've had something like that. I was finna fuck a dude up like this a couple of weeks ago. I understand how it be. I would like to give Latasia a probation, but the law in my state, Nigeria, says I can't do that. Y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
These are determinate sentences. The reason why people become judges, Malik, is that they want to look over the facts of the case and make sure that the public is protected, but do it in a way where we don't do like the Romans and people did under the code of Hammurabi, where we just punish people very harshly without little thought to what we're trying to accomplish. Do y'all recall when we talked about the different forms of the different eras of incarceration? When we talked about the classical school, of course, we talked about the progressive era, we talked about the reform era, and then we got into the tough on crime era, which is what most of us have lived under. This became popular in the late 1960s and 1970s, Nigeria, where there began disappointment again that from the classical school onward, there was a belief that people could be reformed, people could be, taught to do better. The politicians at the time were very disappointed with this, the results of this. It's like, you know what? Like, people ain't learning their lesson. They up here there, like, people get to go to school and they get to have full meals. People get to go to school, people get to go to prison and they get like, they come out with like, a high school diploma and stuff. And then they end up going to do crimes anyway. My tax dollars are going to go help these people and they're not learning anything. They're not doing any better. The data on that, the empirical data on that is very weak. But the politicians, again, were able to really get a lot of headway. So like from this point onward, if you were a politician that were really talking about, being tough on crime, that was a way to really make your candidacy a lot more attractive. Hillary Clinton is not president right now because her husband signed the federal crime bill, which in many ways was a tough on crime policy that followed under this model. The Clintons should be criticized for that, but it's also important to understand the larger political landscape. And again, I don't want to like brain race into everything, but we can't have an honest conversation about the criminal justice system in America without talking about race. We just can't. Do your own research. I could be making that up, but I mean, it's the truth. But sincerely, don't take my word for it, because I need y'all to clean this up. But I need y'all to clean it up if y'all really believe that it needs to be cleaned up. In the late 1960s, in the wake of the civil rights movement, there was a lot of talk about being tough on crime. There were a lot of riots, like the riots that we saw like over this summer, like, you know, with George Floyd and stuff like that, which got pretty like bad and severe at times. It wasn't nothing like some of the riots in the 1960s. So again, you know, whether it be Watts, Newark, Detroit, Chicago, you know, there will be riots very frequently, like riots almost in every major city in America the day after Martin Luther King died. It scared a lot of white people. As a result, in the same way now, right? Like, you know, they labeled it, these looters, these thugs that are like, you know, like again, not the police who actually like murdered George Floyd, but we really want to come down hard on people that's breaking into Foot Locker, and we want to lock them up. This type of ideology became really popular, where again, lock everybody up in the 1970s and 80s, and our policies changed as a result. And one of the major policies was an introduction of determinate sentences. The belief was, Malik, that these weak liberal judges are going into court, like the same way I was feeling bad for Latasia and going through her record hypothetically. They said the judges were doing that and they were letting awful people back out on the street. So they wanted to take the decisions out of the judges' hands, and we're going to have definitive sentences. No more of this, okay, 1 to 5, and then like, you know, and Jarvis did this horrible crime and he's back on the street in a year. We're going to make it, no, 15 years. As a result, again, I told y'all about the things that we went over in great detail, the things that you want to include in your paper. If you're paying close attention, a lot of this paper has been written today. Because one of the things you have to speak to is the dramatic rise in the prison population since 1980. And we see here beginning in 1970, like again, like, you know, in 1970, there were 200,000 people locked up in America, 200,000. We went to 2 million by 2007. A popular notion might be that we just had a lot more bad people. We had a lot more crime during that time. Data doesn't support that. Prosecutors, let's go back. I told you, right? Prosecutors and judges have a lot of power and discretion in determining to lock people up. They can give you a lot of different sentences. It doesn't have to be prison. But as a result of the changing politics, they made the decision to lock more and more people up. That decision was made easier in Nigeria because the people that they were locking up, it wasn't their friends, it wasn't their cousins or their homies at the country club. It was people that looked like us. Were they locking up the murderers, the rapists? No. Do your own research. Do your own research. A lot of this population is people that are crackheads, people that may have had a bag of weed. Is society more safe with these people off the streets? Again, I told you, right, Latasia, in my hypothetical example, she's a good, responsible mother trying to make life better for her family. Her family and the community is better off if we take her away from them. If she hasn't killed or murdered anybody or raped anybody. Keep these things in mind. We'll continue this discussion on Monday. You all have a wonderful afternoon. This lecture is being recorded and will be posted as always. This is one I really encourage you to go back and look at. You all have a wonderful day. I expect to see some rough drafts soon.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks.